I do not know what day it is anymore. I stopped counting when the phones went dead, and the radio turned into nothing but distant voices and empty channels. I know the season by the air, and by how long my hands stay stiff after I stop moving. Right now, the wind feels sharp, and the sky has that washed-out look that means afternoon is coming fast. I am at the base of a decommissioned radio tower with a fence around it, and a padlock that somebody already smashed weeks ago. The tower rises out of the scrub and gravel, 400 feet of rusting steel and old bolts. If I stand under it and look up, I can see the maintenance ring near the top, a thin circle of grating that wraps around the spine. That ring is the only reason I am here. It is not comfortable. It is not safe. It is simply the one place I can reach where the ground cannot reach me back. I keep my eyes down and my steps quiet as I cross the gravel. The sound carries here. It always does around metal. The fenced compound has a small cinderblock equipment building and a few dead cabinets on concrete pads. The doors on everything hang open, and someone already picked the wiring clean. The trouble is not the empty building. The trouble is the movement beyond the fence line. Infected drift through the weeds on the far side, slow and ugly in the way only something empty can be. A few more are closer, on the dirt access road, pulled here by old noise or the habit of wandering toward tall structures. I do not let myself stare at faces. I watch feet, shoulders, direction. I watch for the moment one turns and points itself at me. My backpack is heavy. My second bag is worse. I rigged it with rope so I can drag it when I need both hands, and the rope scrapes the gravel with every pull. That scrape is a problem. Every time it happens, I stop, hold still, listen, and wait for the sound to die in the air. The gate is half open. I slip through and pull it a few inches, not enough to latch, just enough to stop it from swinging in the wind. I do not want metal tapping metal all day. I get to the equipment building first because it gives me a wall at my back. The tower legs sit in concrete footings around the building. 4 thick steel posts with diagonal braces that form a ladder pattern all the way up. The old ladder sections are bolted to one leg, running straight to the first platform, then continuing upward in segments. I know this kind of tower. I used to climb for a living, not towers this tall, but close enough. Harness, lanyard, clip. Move one point at a time. Do not get greedy. Do not pretend the weather cares about you. Those rules kept men alive back when the world still had time cards. Now those rules are the only thing between me and a fall nobody would even hear. I do not climb yet. I lay everything out behind the equipment building, in the narrow wedge of shadow where I am hidden from the road. I check my harness twice. Leg straps tight, waist belt snug, chest strap set. I run my fingers down the lanyard to the hooks and make sure the gates close clean. I do not have a new kit. I have what I salvaged from a maintenance truck in a parking lot on the edge of town, and I have been kind to it. Rope coils get checked. Knots get tied slow and inspected. I take out a pair of gloves with the fingertips worn thin. I take out a cheap rain jacket and a cap. I take out my only real luxury, a small folding tarp, not big, but clean, and a roll of duct tape that still has enough to matter. Food is in the first bag. Water containers are in the second. A small portable transceiver is wrapped in a shirt so it does not smash against steel. Batteries and a hand-crank charger are packed tight so they do not rattle. Every item has a reason. If it does not have a reason, it does not come up the tower. I hear the first infected before I see it. A dragging foot on dry grass. A breath that is not really a breath, more a loose throat pushing air. It is outside the fence, maybe 50 feet away. It is not close enough to be an immediate problem, but it changes my pace. I move to the tower leg with the ladder, and I put my hands on cold metal. No time for perfect, time for controlled. I clip in, test my weight, then start up, boots on rungs, one rung at a time. Clip, unclip, clip again. The tower vibrates lightly under me, not from wind yet, from my own movement. I keep my face turned toward the steel, eyes on the next hold. I do not look down because down has teeth now. I do not look out because out invites mistakes. The first platform comes quick, a square of grating with a waist-high rail. I step onto it and stand still, letting the motion settle. The air up here already feels different, cleaner, harsher. I pull the first bag up behind me using the rope I pre-tied, then the second. Nothing drops, nothing clanks. I breathe slow through my nose, not because I'm trying to calm myself, but because mouth breathing is loud. I climb again. The ladder continues, bolted in sections, each section ending at a small rest point. I keep 2 points of contact whenever I can. I keep my lanyard clipped above me, and I do not rush transitions. When I pass an old antenna mount, I feel the tower sway more as the wind catches it. It is not a big swing, but it is enough to remind me this entire plan is built on steel that has been ignored for years. There are birds nesting in some of the braces. They skitter and flutter when I come near. That noise is dangerous. That noise reaches the ground. I freeze and wait every time it happens until the birds settle down. I move again when the air is quiet. I can see the maintenance ring now. It wraps around the main spine and sits just below the highest cluster of dead hardware. The ring is narrow. It has a few anchor points welded in, old places for workers to clip fall protection while servicing lights and mounts. It is the closest thing to a home I am going to find today. I step onto the ring and keep my knees bent, not because I'm scared, but because the grating has uneven spots and I do not trust it. The wind hits harder up here. It moves around my ears and presses my jacket against my arms. I stay clipped in and I start working immediately. First job, secure my position so I can use both hands without playing games. I pick 2 separate anchor points on opposite sides of the ring and run my rope between them, a tight line that gives me something to lean into without shifting my center too far. I tie a second line as a backup, not fancy, just a clean knot with a long tail. Then I bring up the bags and hook them to the rail so nothing can slide off. Every movement is deliberate. Every clip is audible up here, a small metallic snap. I time those snaps with gusts of wind so the sound blends into what the tower already makes. That is the first trick I learn on the ring. Sound is not just volume. Sound is timing. When the gear is secured, I build the windbreak. I do not have lumber. I do not have panels. I have a tarp, duct tape, and a handful of zip ties. The ring has a short rail and a few vertical posts. I stretch the tarp along the side facing the prevailing wind, and I tie it tight. Then I tape any flapping edge down so it does not slap the rail. The tarp becomes a wall about chest height when I sit. It is not a tent. It is not warm. It simply blocks enough wind that I can exist without being shoved around. I add an emergency blanket behind it, the shiny kind, taped carefully so it does not tear. The blanket is not for heat miracles. It is for cutting the wind and giving me a dry surface if rain comes sideways. Once the wall is up, I set a small foam pad on the grating and I test positions, kneeling, sitting with my back against the spine, lying across my rope line in a way that keeps me clipped in. None of it feels good. All of it feels possible. Possible is the only category I need. Cutting the ladder is the part that would sound insane to anyone who still thinks in normal life terms. Cutting the ladder means no quick escape down. It means no second thoughts. It means no strangers climbing up behind me. I did not bring a torch. I did not bring a saw that could chew steel. I brought a wrench, a ratchet, and patience. The ladder sections are bolted to brackets, and those brackets are bolted to the leg. The bolts are old. Some are seized. I work them anyway. I start with the lowest ladder section above the first platform, because I want the gap to be deep enough that nobody can bridge it with a quick boost. I loosen bolts until the bracket shifts. I tie a rope around the ladder section so I can control it. Then I ease it out, one end at a time. The section is heavier than it looks. Steel always is. It swings when it comes free, and I have to fight the urge to yank it. Yanking makes noise. Yanking makes mistakes. I lower it with the rope, hand over hand, until it hangs below the platform. Then I let it go. The section drops and hits the concrete inside the fenced compound with a sound that is not huge, but it is sharp. It rings through the tower. I freeze and listen. I can feel the vibration through my boots. I can imagine heads turning below. Movement starts outside the fence within a minute. Infected shift toward the compound, pulled by that one clear sound. A few press at the fence and rake their hands across metal. That scraping continues on and off in small bursts. I do not look down for long. I do not give myself that picture to carry. I get back to work. I remove another ladder section higher up, then another. I create a dead zone of missing steel that starts around the first platform and continues for multiple lengths. Even if someone gets into the compound with a tall extension ladder, there will still be a gap. Even if someone tries to climb the leg braces, he will have to do it for a long stretch with nothing but open air behind him. Most people do not climb when their mind is calm. Almost nobody climbs when infected are moving underfoot. That is the point. The sun drops and the wind changes direction. It gets colder fast. The tower creaks in a way that suggests joints shifting under load. I eat a handful of nuts and a strip of dried meat, slow, chewing carefully, so I do not choke on dry food in dry air. I take tiny sips of water and put the bottle back in my bag. I do not trust myself to leave water out where a gust could knock it. I test my tarp wall again and tighten a tie that loosened. Then I pull my jacket hood up and settle into the only position that lets me rest, seated against the spine, clipped in at 2 points, legs bent, boots wedged under the rail so I do not slide. I do not sleep. I let my eyes close for short stretches, and I open them whenever the tower shifts under a gust. The ground is far. The noises from below are small, but they rise. A moan travels upward, a fence rattle, a distant engine that dies out after a few seconds. Each sound arrives, hangs in the air, then fades, leaving the wind and the metal and my own small movements. At some point in the night, rain starts. Not a steady rain, but scattered drops blown sideways. The tarp catches some of it. The emergency blanket beads water and sheds it. The rest comes through the grating and sprays my boots. I keep my gear under the windbreak, and I tuck the bags tight against the spine. I do not have space to pace. I do not have space to shake out nerves. I manage it by doing checks. Clip gates closed, knots still tight, strap still snug, tarp still secured. The tower becomes slick where the paint has peeled and rust has smoothed edges. I keep my hands on the rope line more than the steel. Rope gives a different kind of grip. Rope gives feedback before it becomes dangerous. When lightning flickers far away, I stop moving entirely and watch the horizon through gaps in the structure. The storm is not here yet. It is walking in. I used to follow lightning protocols because a supervisor told me to. Now I follow them because the sky has no patience and no mercy. I shut down anything electronic and tuck it deep in the bag. I do not wear my headset. I keep my hands off the tower whenever a flash appears, resting them on my own knees or on the foam pad. That does not make me safe. Nothing makes you safe on a 400-foot metal structure during a storm. It only reduces stupid risk. When the storm arrives, it arrives hard. The wind hits in pulses strong enough to move my tarp wall and make it thrum against the rail despite all the ties. Rain turns into a sheet that comes through the tower lattice. Lightning flashes close enough that the air changes, sharp and prickly, and the tower answers with a faint crackle that runs through the metal. I do not talk. I do not pray. I keep my body compact, clipped in, and I focus on staying still. The tower sways, slow and heavy, not a whip, but a long controlled flex that reminds me it is built to move. Every flash brightens the wet steel and then drops me back into darkness. When it finally pushes past, the rain eases and the wind settles into a steady push again. I do not move for several minutes after the last close flash, because that is how people get careless. They think it is over before it is over. Morning comes gray and damp. My clothes are not soaked, but everything is clammy, and the metal under me is cold enough that I keep shifting pressure points to avoid numbness. I do not describe what my body feels in neat terms because I cannot waste attention on it. Attention belongs to the tower. I check the tarp and find one tie snapped. The edge is flapping. That flapping is noise. Noise invites visitors. I fix it with tape and a new tie, working one-handed while keeping my other hand on the rope line. Down below, the compound is a mess. I can see it if I lean out. Ladder sections lie twisted where they landed. The fence has infected pressed against it. Not a full crowd, but enough to be a problem if I ever needed the ground. I watch for a long minute, and I notice something else. Tracks in the gravel inside the compound. Fresh. Shoe prints and a dragged line where someone pulled something heavy. Somebody came in during the night, not close enough for me to hear over the storm, and somebody left. That means this tower is already on someone's mental map. I eat again, a small meal, then I set up water collection. I do not have fancy filters. I have a clean plastic sheet, a bottle, and gravity. I angle the tarp so runoff funnels toward one corner, and I tape a short strip to guide drips into my bottle mouth. It is slow. It is annoying. It is still better than climbing down for pond water with infected at the fence. I let it collect while I do other tasks. I inspect my harness for wear where it rubs the grating. I adjust my pad so sharp edges do not cut fabric. I use a rag to wipe a rust patch where my rope line has been dragging, because rust can chew fibers over time. None of these tasks feel heroic. None of them belong in the stories people tell around fires. These tasks keep me alive 1 hour at a time. When the bottle finally has enough to matter, I cap it and stash it. I do not celebrate. I simply mark it as one more problem pushed back. Near midday, I hear voices from the access road. Human voices. 2 men, maybe 3, talking loud enough to carry. The way people talk when they want to sound fearless. I shift my position so I can see without exposing too much of myself above the ring. A pickup truck rolls up, slow, tires crunching gravel. The truck stops outside the fence, and one man gets out with a pair of binoculars. He scans the tower, finds my tarp wall, and points. Another man lifts his hands and cups them around his mouth to shout up. I do not answer. Answering tells him my mood, my timing, my voice. Answering gives him information. He shouts anyway, words bouncing off metal. He says there is food. He says there is a group. He says he wants to talk. I stay quiet and watch what he does next. He walks the fence line and looks for a gate. He tests the half-open gate I left. He pushes it wider and steps inside. The infected at the far side of the fence turn toward the movement and begin to drift along the perimeter. The man inside does not seem to care. That tells me enough about his judgment. He reaches the ladder and looks up. He sees the missing sections. His head tilts in a way that says he did not expect that. He shouts again, this time with anger in it. The other man grabs something from the truck bed, a long extension ladder, the kind painters use. He drags it toward the fence gate. The ladder scrapes metal and gravel, loud and steady. Infected turn. More appear from the weeds. The men keep going. They are committed now, and commitment can be more dangerous than fear. They wrestle the ladder into the compound and try to angle it against the tower leg. The ladder is too short to reach anything useful, and it slides on gravel. One man curses under his breath. Not loud, just the kind of word a tired man uses without thinking. He adjusts, tries again. The scraping continues. The infected at the fence begin to press harder. One slips through a bent spot where the wire is loose. Another follows. The men notice too late. The man with binoculars backs away, and the man holding the ladder swings it as a barrier, trying to push the infected off without getting grabbed. I do not cheer. I do not panic. I watch and I learn. These men are not here to rescue me. These men are here to take my position or force a deal. Their noise brought infected into the compound, and now the compound is turning into a trap. The men retreat fast, abandoning the ladder. One shoves the other toward the gate and nearly trips over his own feet. The infected move in, slow but relentless, and the men cannot afford a stumble. They get out and slam the gate, not locking it, just pushing it shut. The truck door slams. Tires spin on gravel. The pickup peels away down the access road, leaving the ladder behind, leaning at a useless angle against the fence. Infected gather inside the compound now, wandering among the fallen ladder sections, bumping into the cinder block building, dragging hands along the tower footings. The fence holds most of them, but the compound itself is no longer empty. The ground under me has become a living noise source that will keep pulling more infected over time. I sit back against the spine and hold still. The lesson is simple. People will come here again, and next time they will bring better tools, or more bodies, or both. That afternoon, I bring out my portable transceiver. I keep the volume low. I do not broadcast my life story. I listen. There are voices out there, scattered, weak, sometimes overlapping. A woman somewhere is reading a list of names and locations in a steady tone, repeating the same message every hour. A man farther away is asking for medicine and offering fuel. Most of it is pointless for me. I cannot travel. I cannot even climb down safely anymore. Still, I log what I hear in my head, mapping distance by signal strength and by how clear the audio sounds when the wind gusts. I decide to transmit one short message near sunset, when human activity tends to shift and sound from the ground blends with evening movement. I keep it plain. I say my first name. I say I am alive. I say I am on a tower north of town, and I cannot come down. I say I am not asking for rescue. I ask for weather warnings and road updates. Then I stop. I do not chat. I do not argue. I do not invite conversation. If anyone responds, It will be on his own time, and I will decide then whether it helps me. Night again. The tower is louder now because the compound is louder. Infected bump the fence. Infected stumble against the building. Sometimes one falls, then gets back up with awkward persistence. Every sound climbs the steel, and the steel carries it. I cannot shut it out. I manage it by focusing on tasks. I reinforce my tarp wall with another line. I reposition my pad. I check my water stash. I ration food into piles so I do not overeat when my mind gets tired. I wrap my rope line where it rubs the rail with a strip of cloth to reduce wear. I do these things until my eyes burn from wind and lack of rest. Then I let myself sit still for short periods, staring out at the horizon where the town lights used to be. There is nothing now, only darkness and occasional flickers of fire far away. Somebody is burning something in the distance, maybe for heat, maybe for cooking, maybe for a signal. It does not matter. What matters is that I am still here, and the ladder is gone, and I cannot pretend I can return to my old life, even if the infected vanished overnight. 2 days pass in this pattern, broken by brief spikes of danger. Once, a gust hits hard enough that my tarp wall tears at a corner, and I have to crawl along the ring with one hand on rope, the other hand taping fabric down before it unravels into a loud flag. Another time, the birds return and fight over a nest in the braces, sending loose bits of straw and plastic fluttering into open air. The worst moment is when a small piece of metal, maybe an old bolt, drops from somewhere above and pings down the tower leg in a chain of impacts. The sound is bright and sharp, and it pulls every infected in the compound to that leg all at once. They press and scrape and gather until the fence bows. Then the sound fades, and they drift again, leaving me with the knowledge that my home is always one accident away from drawing a crowd. On the third morning, I see someone on the access road who does not move the way the men moved. No swagger, no shouting. A woman steps out of the brush line and approaches the compound on foot, carrying a pack. She stops far from the fence and watches the infected inside. Her head turns slowly, scanning, not hungry, not frantic. She looks up at the tower, and I can tell by how she tracks the structure that she understands climbing. She raises a hand, palm open, a quiet gesture. I stay still. I do not wave back. I do not reveal more of myself than necessary. She takes a few steps closer and pulls a small cloth from her pocket, white, and holds it up for a moment. Then she points down at the ground near the fence and points up at me. She is asking for attention, and she is asking without noise. That is already different from most survivors I have seen lately. She waits. 5 minutes. 10. She does not pace. She does not throw rocks. She does not try to rush the gate. Finally, she calls out, but not loud. She says, "I am not here to take it." Her voice carries anyway, because the tower throws sound. She says her name is Nora. She says she used to work on towers. She says she has a way up that does not rely on the ladder, but she will not use it unless I agree. She says she has water treatment tablets and a small coil of proper climbing rope. She says she has been moving alone and she is tired of sleeping on ground that can be surrounded by morning. I keep my mouth shut and watch her hands. Hands tell truth faster than words. Her hands stay open. Her shoulders stay low. She does not touch a weapon. That does not guarantee anything, but it means she is not trying to start a fight in the first minute. My premise has been simple. Nobody comes up. Now the premise collides with reality. Nora has skills that could keep both of us alive longer, and she also has the ability to reach me whether I want it or not. I test that logic in my head, step by step. If I refuse and she climbs anyway, I end up in a physical conflict on a narrow ring where one mistake ends both of us. If I agree and bring her up under my terms, I keep control of timing and approach, and I can vet her condition. If I scream or threaten, I create noise that pulls infected into a frenzy under the tower, and that noise will not help me. So I do the only practical thing. I speak once, loud enough to carry, calm enough not to shake. I tell her she can come up if she follows my instructions exactly. I tell her no sudden moves near the ring. I tell her she stops at the first platform and waits for me to check her. I tell her if she is bitten, she stays down there. I do not argue about what a bite means. I do not insult her intelligence. I keep it clean. Nora nods once and begins. She does not use the ladder. She uses the tower leg braces, clipping into the steel with practiced movements, using an ascender and rope in a way that tells me she did this in her old life. The infected inside the compound notice her movement and drift toward the tower footings. Nora keeps her motions smooth and quiet, minimizing clanks. She pauses when an infected bumps the fence, letting the moment pass. When she reaches the first platform, she stays there, exactly as I told her, clipped in, hands off anything unnecessary. I climb down 2 platform levels, keeping myself attached at all times, and I stop where I can see her face clearly. Her eyes are alert. Her skin is dirty but not sick. Her jaw has that tight set of someone who has been hungry and careful for too long. I do not ask personal questions. I ask practical ones. Any bites, any scratches, any fever. Nora answers with short words. No, no, no. Then she opens her pack and shows me her supplies without me asking twice. A sealed bottle of tablets, 2 small water bladders, a compact first aid pouch, rope, a few dense food bars, and a rolled windbreaker. Nothing flashy, nothing that screams trap. I let her climb higher under my watch. Every time she transitions, I pay attention to how she clips and how she manages slack. People who lie about climbing often show it in transitions. Nora does not. When she reaches the ring, she stops a few feet short of my tarp wall and waits, clipped in, giving me space. I keep my own lanyard tight, and I look her over again. No visible blood, no trembling hands, no wild eyes. That is still not a guarantee, but it is enough to proceed. I tell her where to clip. I tell her where not to step, because a section of grating flexes more than the rest. She follows directions without pushing. That alone lowers my threat meter. We do not shake hands. We do not do any of the normal rituals of meeting. We are both standing on steel above a world that eats mistakes. Ritual does not help. Procedure helps. The first thing Nora does is point at my tarp wall and the way it is attached. She does not criticize it with ego. She points and offers a better method. Cross-bracing lines that reduce flap, a tighter corner fold that sheds rain more cleanly, and a way to hang a small gear sling so we do not have bags sliding around underfoot. We work together in near silence, exchanging short instructions, moving one item at a time. It feels strange to have another person's hands near my rope. It feels risky. It also feels efficient. Within an hour, the wall is quieter. The rain catch is better. The ring is less cluttered. Nora sets up her own tether line so we do not trip over each other. Then she sits, clipped in, and eats a small portion of food without gulping, watching the horizon while she chews. I mirror her. 2 people sitting on a 400-foot ring, sharing space without turning it into a power struggle. It is not friendship. It is an agreement shaped by physics. By evening, the compound below changes again. A new vehicle arrives. Not the same pickup, a different one, a smaller SUV. It stops near the fence. A man steps out and looks up. He sees the tarp. He sees movement. He sees two silhouettes now, not one. He raises his hands and calls out. Nora stays still and lets me decide. I do not answer right away. I watch what he does. He paces the fence line and stares at the ladder gaps. He kicks one of the dropped sections, testing weight. Then he walks back to the SUV and pulls out a long object that could be a tool or a weapon. He rests it on the hood and looks up again. Nora leans close enough to speak without raising her voice. She says the simplest truth. More people will come now that someone knows this tower is occupied. She says if we broadcast at night, we risk drawing people and infected. She says if we stay silent, someone might still decide to take it out of jealousy or spite. I nod once. Her logic tracks. I have been thinking in a single-person system. Now it is a two-person system, and that changes the math. The man below shouts again, louder. He says he can help. He says he has a group. He says the tower is valuable, and we should be reasonable. I look down at the infected milling inside the compound. If that man makes a lot of noise, the infected will gather and turn the fence into a battering point again. If he tries to climb, he might fall and make even more noise, and a falling human body hitting ground carries far. The practical move is to deny him attention while preparing for escalation. I do not taunt. I do not negotiate. I do not promise. I simply move back from the rail and disappear behind the tarp wall so he cannot track my exact position. Nora follows. We sit low. We keep our gear tight. We wait. The man below paces for a while, then leaves. He does not leave in a calm way. He leaves in a way that suggests he will return with friends. That night, Nora and I discuss one thing, brief and focused. Not dreams, not families, not regrets. We discuss exit options. Staying on the ring works until weather breaks us or equipment fails. Going down is risky because the compound is infected heavy and the fence is compromised. Rebuilding the ladder would take time and make noise. Rappelling off the tower to clear ground would put us in open space with infected and with whatever group keeps circling this tower. Nora proposes a middle step, a controlled descent to the roof of the equipment building inside the compound, using rope from the ring down, not to the ground, just to the roof. From there, we can move across the roof to the edge, drop to the far side where the fence blocks infected movement, then slip out through a gap and move into the brush. It is not a clean plan. It is still better than being trapped on steel during the next serious storm. I push back on one part. Using the roof still puts us inside the compound with infected. Nora agrees and adjusts. We do it at a time when infected are drawn away by a distraction, something distant, something we can trigger without being close. A car alarm on the far access road maybe, or a battery-powered speaker we can toss. Something that pulls the cluster away from the building footings. The plan is not perfect. It is the first plan that exists. The next day proves we do not control the schedule. A storm front rolls in late afternoon, darker than the last one. The wind rises in a steady climb, not gusty at first, then turning into hard pulses that hit the tarp wall and make the whole ring vibrate. Nora and I reinforce everything we can. We add extra ties, we tape edges, we move loose items into bags and clip the bags to anchor points. We keep electronics off and packed away. I watch the sky through the lattice, and I see lightning far off, then closer. The tower begins to sing in a low way when wind hits it just right, a tone that comes and goes with angle. That tone messes with the mind if you listen to it too long. I keep myself anchored in tasks. Nora does the same. When the first close flash hits, both of us go still, hands off steel, bodies compact, clipped in. We do not stare at each other. We stare at the structure and the ropes and the knots and the tarp and the little things that matter when the world turns violent for no reason. The storm is worse than the first. Rain drives straight through the tower, hitting the grating and splashing upward. Water runs down steel and drips from every brace. Lightning flashes close enough that the tower's metal changes sound, and once the air makes a snapping noise that feels too near. Nora shifts a few inches, careful, and I see her jaw clench. She does not say she is scared. She does not need to. Her hands tighten on her own tether line, and she checks her clips again, one by one. That is how fear looks up here. Procedure repeated until the mind stays in line. A sudden hard gust tears a section of the emergency blanket loose. It flaps and snaps against the rail, loud enough that I imagine it echoing all the way down to the access road. I crawl, clipped in, and grab the loose corner. Nora crawls too, staying on the opposite side so we do not collide. We pin the blanket and tape it down again, fingers working in rain. The tape barely sticks on wet metal, so we wrap it around the rail and knot it. The flapping stops, another problem pushed back. When morning comes, the compound below looks different. The infected are still there, but something else is there too. The extension ladder that the earlier men left has shifted. It is now angled at the tower leg differently, and fresh footprints mark the gravel around it. Somebody came during the storm again, using the weather noise as cover. Nora sees it too. She does not say, "We should have known." She just begins prepping for the descent plan without wasting words. We inventory supplies. We separate what must come down and what can be abandoned. We check rope length. We pick anchor points. We rehearse movements with our hands before we commit. I set up a small battery-powered noisemaker, a cheap device that used to be a travel alarm, modified to blare when triggered. I have been saving it for emergencies. This counts. Nora rigs a throw line with weight, a small pouch filled with bolts, so we can toss it far and pull the alarm toward a ditch near the access road, away from the compound. The idea is simple. Trigger noise far from the tower, let infected drift that direction, then descend to the equipment building roof, while the immediate area under the tower is less crowded. It will never be empty. It only needs to be less. We wait until late afternoon when light begins to flatten and sightlines get worse from the road. Nora crawls to the edge of the ring where she can get a clear throw path. I keep watch on the access road and the fence line. No vehicles, no humans visible. Infected mill inside the compound, clustered near the tower leg and around the cinder block building corners. Nora swings the weighted line once, twice, then releases. The pouch arcs out and drops beyond the fence, out near the ditch. The line slides through her gloved hand. She keeps control so it does not snag on braces. When it lands, she pulls the alarm device along the ground by the line until it sits where we want it, hidden in weeds. Then she triggers it. The sound is ugly and electronic and loud, a steady wail that does not belong in nature. Infected turn toward it almost immediately. Heads rotate, bodies shuffle. The cluster begins to drift toward the sound in small groups. It is not instant. It is not clean. It still creates a gap near the tower footings. Nora and I look at each other once, not for comfort, for timing. Then we start the descent. We attach our main rope to a high anchor point on the ring, doubled and backed up. We run it down along the tower leg, keeping it away from sharp edges where we can. I go first because I lived here longer and I need to confirm the landing. I clip my descender, test friction, then ease over the ring edge. My boots find the tower leg braces, and I step down in controlled increments, using the rope for weight transfer, not trusting any one brace too much. The wind still moves the tower. The rope swings slightly. I keep my body close to the steel to reduce sway. Below, the equipment building roof is a flat surface with old tar and scattered debris. I aim for the center. I lower myself until my boots touch. I shift weight onto the roof, then unclip the descender only after I am fully stable and clipped to a roof edge anchor Nora told me to use. Then I look around fast. Infected remain inside the compound, but fewer are near the building now. The alarm's wail continues beyond the fence, pulling attention away. The moment is working. For now. Nora descends next, smooth and fast without rushing. When she lands, we do not hug or celebrate. We move. We clip our packs tight, keep our profiles low, and cross the roof to the far edge where the fence line creates a barrier. We drop down behind the building, into a narrow strip of space where weeds grow and concrete meets dirt. The smell of wet earth is strong. The sound of the alarm is still wailing, and it is pulling infected into a loose line along the fence. A few infected near the building turn toward us. Not all at once, but enough. I pick a route that keeps the building between us and the nearest cluster. Nora follows, close, not stepping on debris that could crack underfoot. We reach the fence corner where wire is bent and loose. We slip through, one at a time, packs scraping. The fence tugs at Nora's jacket, and she pauses, not yanking, easing fabric free. Then we are out, in brush, moving away from the tower without running, without noise spikes, using terrain as cover. We do not stop until we reach a shallow drainage channel that cuts through scrub a few hundred yards out. From there, the tower is still visible over the weeds, a tall skeleton against the sky. The alarm's wail becomes muffled as distance increases. Infected remain drawn to it. That buys us minutes, maybe more. We crouch in the channel and look back. No humans chasing yet. No vehicle lights. Nora points toward a low ridgeline and a stand of trees that will break our silhouettes. We move again, stepping around puddles, avoiding branches that snap. The ground feels unstable in a different way now. Up on the ring, the danger was wind and lightning and a fall. Down here, the danger is everything, with legs and teeth and hunger. I accept that shift without dramatics. This is simply the trade we made. We needed to leave the tower before it turned into a trophy for desperate men. At the ridge, we pause behind a fallen log and finally speak in full sentences for the first time since meeting. Nora says the tower was a good idea for short-term survival, but it was always going to draw attention. Tall structures do that. Humans notice them. Humans assume value. I tell her I cut the ladder because I was more afraid of people than infected, and the last week proved that fear was not misplaced. Nora does not argue. She just nods and says we still have one advantage. We know how to climb, and we know how to plan around structures. We can pick another place that does not scream resource, something boring, something overlooked, something that gives cover without advertising itself. She suggests a small water tank on private land, low and fenced, not tall, not visible from roads. I suggest a maintenance shed near a rail spur with no traffic now, something with a roof and a back exit. We do not decide yet. We just keep moving while the light holds. By the time the sun drops, we are miles from the tower, deep enough into broken fields and tree lines that road noise fades. We find a shallow depression under thick brush and set a temporary hide. No fire, no lights. We eat small portions and drink carefully. Nora takes the first watch while I rest. Then I take the next. Watching on the ground is different. You do not look down. You look across. You listen for grass shifting and for branches that move wrong. You watch shadows for shape changes. When I glance up through the leaves, I can still picture the ring, the tarp wall, the long nights clipped to steel. It was a strange kind of safety, built on height and isolation. It worked until it did not. That is the rule now. Everything works until it does not. The survivors who last are not the ones with the best place. The survivors who last are the ones who can leave a place before it becomes a trap. In the early hours before dawn, the wind eases and the world gets quiet in a way that feels temporary. Nora shifts beside me and whispers one last practical point. She says the tower might still matter later. Not as a home, but as a tool. A place to listen. A place to transmit a short message when it helps, then leave again before anyone can triangulate and swarm. I do not answer with optimism. I answer with procedure. I tell her if we ever go back, we go back to the brush line first. We observe for an hour. We confirm no vehicles, no groups, no new ladder rig, and we only approach if the compound has thinned. Nora agrees. That agreement feels more real than comfort. Comfort lies. Agreements and routines keep you alive. When the sky begins to lighten, we move again. No dramatic farewell to the tower. No vow carved into metal. Just two people walking away from a tall steel skeleton that kept one of us alive for a few days and almost killed him by drawing the wrong attention. I keep my hands on my straps. I keep my steps measured. I scan the tree line ahead. The day is starting, and starting a day is still a victory in this world, even if it does not feel inspiring. It just feels necessary.